America's waterways move soybeans, corn, grain products, and more from family farms to feed the world. U.S. agriculture's positive trade balance relies on efficient waterways to transport these products at the lowest cost. From the upper Mississippi River to the Gulf, our waterways provide efficient, safe, environmentally sound ways to move freight. Modern waterways move America forward toward a stronger U.S. economy. Brought to you by Waterways Council and its stakeholders.
Well, thanks for joining us here for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Senior Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week it was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And it's been a busy week, quite frankly, after kind of a busy month. Phil's been running his shoes off up here on Capitol Hill, bringing you a lot of really good information. First, we want to talk about something that's been building for a while. About a month ago, House Speaker John Boehner announced that he was going to leave, and really one of the last things that he had to accomplish was an extension of the debt ceiling, as well as kind of a reaching of the federal budget. And so, Phil, we've got an agreement here that will cover the federal budget for 2 years, increases the debt ceiling, things of that nature. But agriculturally speaking, a lot of people are really paying attention to a crop insurance provision that ended up in this bill.
Right. Well, Spencer, when John Boehner said he was stepping down as Speaker, he said he wanted to clean out the barn. And clean it out he did, but in the process, some in agriculture thought that he was leaving even a bigger mess, because there was this provision to cut $3 billion from the crop insurance industry by significantly lowering the cap on the rate of return that they could receive from the program. The chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, Mike Conaway, got busy immediately, started working with the House leadership, also with the Majority Leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell. They finally worked out a deal where the $3 billion cut is still technically in the budget bill that's being enacted. However, the agreement is that it will be taken out before the cut can actually be made.
So this is something that's going to be addressed then in the omnibus bill, which is expected to come later on this year?
Correct. In December, Congress has got to enact this spending legislation for fiscal 2016. The 2016 fiscal year actually started October 1st, but it has not been, they've not passed the spending legislation yet. They have to do that in December, and as part of that, they will enact some legislation to replace this $3 billion.
And you mentioned the $3 billion kind of being shifted around here between agriculture and otherwise. So if Representative or Chairman Conway was able to secure that $3 billion and make sure that it wasn't going to be taken out of crop insurance, it's got to come out of somewhere. Do we know where that somewhere is at this point? Right.
Well, theoretically, it's got to be taken out of somewhere. You never know with Congress. It could just disappear. But the commitment that Conaway received is that the $3 billion will be replaced somewhere, not in his somewhere in the federal government outside of his jurisdiction. So that means it can't come out of agriculture. It means it can't come out of the food stamp program, other nutrition programs.
And the House officially voted to pass the budget deal earlier this week. Had unanimous support from the Democratic Party and a fair amount of Republican support. Obviously, it wasn't unanimous. I believe there are more votes against than for, but it did pass out of the House of Representatives. Now goes over to the Senate. I don't think there's a ton of adversarial relationships expected between the Senate and this particular piece of legislation, but time-wise, where does this stand?
Well, Senate passage is pretty much a foregone conclusion. Should note that before they got to the vote, the Majority Leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, went on the floor with the Chairman of the Agriculture Committee in the Senate, Pat Roberts, and McConnell confirmed that he agreed to the House deal worked out by Mike Conaway to reverse that cut to crop insurance. By the way, Spencer, one more thing that Boehner cleaned up before he left office this week as a Speaker over in the House. The railroads had this issue that was threatening to disrupt freight service in coming weeks. with the deadline that they were facing to install these safety systems called positive train control. That got worked out as well.
Yeah, that got pretty close to being down to the wire, because at the end of this year, every railroad that carries hazardous materials or passenger traffic is supposed to have this PTC installed. And basically what PTC does, it allows for remote stopping and starting. It's a very advanced safety system that requires, installation on tracks as well as cars, working with some frequency, some spectrum that they were going to need to work with the FCC on that. And they were, quite frankly, they were behind. I don't think there were any railroad companies in the nation that were saying they were going to be able to make this work. And so what happened was they were able to tie in an extension of PTC for 3 years, could be as much as 5, but in most cases it's going to be 3 years, in with a short-term highway funding expansion that lasts about 22 days, I believe is the exact number. So basically, between now and Thanksgiving, House and Senate leaders kind of need to kumbaya and come to an agreement over a long-term highway bill. They've passed something to the extent of 30 extensions of highway funding since the last time they did a long-term highway bill, and this is probably the closest they've been in the course of all those extensions. The Senate has already passed a 6-year bill. The House has cleared one out of committee. It's expected on the full floor next week or in coming times. And also, before we go here, we do want to just briefly mention some news that was expected out of the House of Representatives became official today. Paul Ryan, now officially the Speaker of the House, replacing John Boehner, who immediately resigned as Speaker, and I do believe he's still the representative for that Ohio district through the end of the month, but he is retiring from the speakership and from Congress. Paul Ryan elected to replace him. And Phil, with all the talk about crop insurance, Paul Ryan has made some previous efforts on the crop insurance front. So what do you think a Paul Ryan speakership is going to mean for the current discussion regarding crop insurance?
Right. Well, he has gone after crop insurance, particularly back when he was chairman of the Budget Committee. He had cuts to crop insurance in the annual budget plans, proposals that he brought out. Now, I asked House Agriculture Chairman Conaway about this, and he points to the fact that Paul Ryan, as Speaker, has promised to defer to committees. In fact, he made that. Ryan talked about that again today in his acceptance speech, that he was going to defer to committees. He was going to push power down to the members of the House. And I can probably assure you that the members of the Agriculture Committee will be looking to Ryan to keep that pledge.
Yes, and as we've previously reported on these videos before, Paul Ryan has pledged, specifically in regards to immigration, that he would not try to move a broad immigration bill without the support of the entire Republican caucus, or not the entire, but the majority thereof. So that was a big concession that he had to make to members of the House Freedom Caucus in order to get their support in this election. There was still a little bit of dissension. I believe 9 folks still voted for Daniel Webster, who was previously being backed by the House Freedom Caucus, but the majority of the Republicans definitely standing behind Paul Ryan at this point. Also want to give a special shout out to National FFA Convention. That's obviously why Phil and I are both wearing blue and gold today. That was completely planned, and we definitely meant to do that.
Absolutely.
But definitely supportive of the Blue Jackets here at Agri-Pulse Communications. I wish everyone in Louisville a great week. And I think that's going to about do it for a busy week here up on Capitol Hill for us at Agri-Pulse Communications and Agriculturally Speaking on Capitol Hill. For Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.